Thank you for taking the time today to review another version of Develop, Integrate, and Sustain TV, keeping it simple. My name is Jeff Lush, and I'll be your host today, and we're going to actually talk about host-based replication. And we're going to focus on the service provided to the end user of email. So our end user requires email to do their functions. We're going to talk about how we keep availability of that resource. Alright, so the discussion must begin with the replication of the service. The service, being email, is replicated here from the local servers. Here we replicate this service over to replication server target. This is all within the same network, so we're going to replicate server A and server B. Note here there's a single server here, multiple servers here, very acceptable. We can do that however you want to do it. The latency here is very low, so we can replicate this so that at any time if these servers fail, one of these servers, we can run both of them theoretically on one physical server here on this box. Alright, so with the replication of the service, we must replicate storage. Imagine replicating the service of email and not having any access because the storage failed at the primary site. It doesn't make any sense. So we have to take and replicate the storage as well. Remember, because this is local, we're replicating synchronously between here and here. Let's talk a little more about what this synchronous replication and asynchronous replication means. This is a model of synchronous replication. Notice the email messages separate, both of them writing to two different places. Here we're writing to server A storage, here we're writing to server B storage. As a transaction began here, he sent down and wrote to these two locations. Once the write was confirmed, or okay, it was sent back up so that the transaction can be completed. Here represented, this is synchronous replication. Remember, same data center, less than 1 second latency. Let's contrast that to asynchronous replication. Notice here, asynchronous replication completed the transaction before the actual data was written. So here, we're replicating the data. The transaction starts, he goes here, and then he asynchronously replicates this. And this is primarily because the distance is probably greater than the tolerance of latency for the application. In other words, this may be a long ways away, 100 miles, let's say. And typically we would asynchronously shoot that over. There is a risk. The risk is if this site fails, meaning this site and this site, all within one geographic site, if it fails for whatever reason and experiences data loss, this site may not have all of the data that exists here. Now, in typical environments, we're only talking a minute or two, standard, but you never know. So just have to be careful of that risk. Let's review asynchronous replication in our model with email. So here we have the service here replicated up and the data replicated to the geographically dispersed site. So let's take a look in review here of what we're talking about here when we talk about host-based replication. Here the primary site has storage and the servers that provide it. Email. The client here comes in, gets all of his stuff here, right, his email services, messaging services. This data and the service is replicated here to the local target. Remember we had server A, server B, right here. Okay, all of the data and services synchronously replicates, meaning that they are always in lockstep with one another. Because of latency issues, we want to make sure the transaction gets completed as soon as possible. So we're going to synchronize here and then give confirmations back to the transaction. Go ahead and proceed to the next transaction. But we're going to provide a little additional safety, and we're going to asynchronously replicate the service and the data over to this geographically dispersed site. Because as we do that, we don't have the restriction of the application. The user continues to drive on because he's getting very fast speed from synchronous replication, and we're just protecting ourselves by asynchronously replicating that off-site. Well, I know that we covered a lot of information there, but if you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact me at jeffrey.l.lush@gmail.com or give me a call. Thank you and have a great day.